The second part of Baki Hanma Season 2 just dropped on our heads and gave us the much anticipated greatest father-son fight of all time. A rematch that's been anticipated in animation for over a decade, Baki Hanma vs Yujiro Hanma did not disappoint in the least. It was a roller coaster ride just getting to the fight itself, and the less we say about the actual fight, the better, because you should just go watch it instead, it's that good. But now that the second season of Baki Hanma, Son of Ogre, has come to an end, it begs the question, what's next? If you're an anime-exclusive fan of the series, or have only become aware of it in the last half-decade or so thanks to Netflix, then it might surprise you to know that Baki being declared the strongest by his dad is not the end of the series after all. Baki is a franchise that is divided into multiple series tracking the young fighter's growth as a man, alongside a rather compelling cast of side characters whose journeys have not come to a natural conclusion yet. All this to say, if you're wondering what's next after the Baki and Yujiro fight, we've got you covered, because we will be breaking down the future of the Baki anime in this video. So, without further ado, let's get started. The greatest father-son fight on Earth. What happens in Season 2, Part 2 of Baki Hanma, Son of Ogre? Ever since Netflix picked up the Baki series for further animation, a whole new plethora of fans have been introduced to what is essentially a decades-long father-son feud, at least from a publication standpoint. Baki is one of the longest-running manga franchises in history, having published its first chapter in 1991 and still continuing serialization today. Only it isn't exactly like Berserk, where it's all in the same overall series. Baki is divided into multiple series that show the titular character's growth and maturation into the world's strongest shonen, with the main conflict of his character being his issues with his father. As the world's strongest creature, Yujiro Hanma existed in a league of his own. With a body that could tank missiles, he pretty much lived life on his own terms and no one else's. He fathered Baki with a woman called Emi Akazawa, but showed no interest in her or his kid beyond the idea of strength. As a result, Baki's mom forced him to train rigorously and obtain power that could one day rival his dad's, in an attempt to win Yujiro's love and approval. But that failed miserably, and Yujiro ended up killing his own wife with a spine-crushing hug, which is what forms the core motivation for everything we see in Netflix's adaptation of Baki. All of this is more extensively covered in the 2001 Baki the Grappler animated series created by Group TAC, so you guys might want to check out that show as well if you've just seen the Netflix version and have always wondered what happened before. But coming to the Netflix shows, they pick up in the aftermath of Baki's victory at the Underground Arena's Maximum Tournament, which crowned him as the strongest underground fighter in the entire world. The finals of that tournament were fought between two siblings, as Baki defeated his half-brother Jack in a nail-biter, but after reaching the pinnacle of strength outside the realm of his father at the age of 17, Baki also ends up becoming a target. The first season of Netflix's Baki focuses on the world's most dangerous convicts escaping their respective prisons and coming to Japan in order to fight Baki and finally taste defeat. Some of them end up getting railroaded by side characters, so their desire to be defeated by the actual strongest goes unfulfilled, but Baki does exhibit exceptional growth as a fighter during this time period. He goes through a beyond fatal poisoning at the hands of Yanagi, enters the Centennial Great Raitai Tournament in China with that severe handicap, and manages to not only win, but pretty much recover mid-tournament as well, which is crazy when you think about the fights that happened in that season. After making Muhammad Ali Jr. his personal pet in an embarrassingly quick grudge match for Baki's title, the Son of Ogre challenges his dad to a fight, which Yujiro accepts. This is where the Baki series comes to an end. In Baki Hanma, which began in 2021, Baki decides to test himself for his father by provoking the strongest American alive, Biscuit Oliva. Baki kidnaps the American president George Bosch and is transferred to Oliva's home, aka the Arizona State Prison, at his request, where he provokes the giant into a lethal encounter where he finally awakens. After getting whooped nearly to death, Baki's brain releases the brain drug that activates a Hanma's greatest genetic advantage in a life or death situation, their demon back. With his demon back awakened, Baki manages to pummel Biscuit Oliva into submission and realizes for the first time in his life he is actually prepared to take on his father. Baki tests himself against the prehistoric behemoth Pickle on multiple occasions and realizes that while he might not possess the outright power to contend with his father, he does have the skill to at least keep up with him. Baki is a martial arts series after all. During the course of his life, Baki had learned so many different fighting techniques that he was practically a walking, talking dictionary on martial martial arts. Some he learned from his dad, others he learned along his path to becoming just a little bit stronger than his dad, and that is what really lies at the core of their conflict. Before realizing that he could take on his father, Baki did not desire to become stronger for strength's sake. He just wanted to become a little bit stronger than his father. It just so happened that his father was the strongest person in the world. But that changes when Baki meets Pickle, because he senses that while his original goal might have been to get revenge on his dad for what he did to his mom, as he fought stronger and deadlier opponents, he realized that being stronger in a fight is what really matters to him, to the point that he couldn't contain himself and actively sought out Pickle for a fight. In his final showdown with the prehistoric giant, Baki manages to get Pickle in a corner with his superior martial arts techniques and loses only because he chooses to slug it out with Pickle, a scenario he knew he would lose in either way. After befriending the prehistoric giant, Baki finally decides that it was time to see to his business with his dad, and ends up having another realization. His dad wasn't exactly as bad as he thought he was all this time. Yujiro Hanma, as we stated earlier, is a man who exists in his own world of strength. He can instantly perceive the weak points of any person he lays his eyes upon, and that's not because he's just that good at analyzing enemies, it's because fighting and winning is all he lives for. His goal for raising Baki wasn't to hold his hand and show him everything about the world himself. He wanted Baki to become strong in his own way, and that showed in this new season where Yujiro not only had dinner with his son twice, but he also educated Baki like a father would, as Baki now had his acknowledgement as someone worthy of his time. Yujiro heard Baki had defeated Biscuit Oliva, and Oliva was someone he himself personally acknowledged for their similar belief in brute strength. So when he learned that his son had become capable enough to handle Oliva, he gladly took his time with him, because to Yujiro, he now finally possessed the perfect toy to play with. And as patronizing as it is, that's exactly what he ends up treating his much touted encounter with Baki as. Playtime. Don't get us wrong here. Baki versus Yujiro was the bloody bone cruncher that it was billed as, and more. Baki threw everything at his dad. Yujiro ended up busting out a new move that was used by his dad on his own son, and then the two slugged it out in the middle of a packed street like only two people with demon-faced backs could do. In the end, Yujiro packed Baki in and was about to do a walk-off, but somehow, Baki's body got up and kicked his father, which showed Yujiro his son's incredible, indomitable fighting spirit. Despite clearly being in better shape than Baki, he concedes the fight and gives him the title of the strongest. And Season 2 Part 2 of Baki Hanma actually comes to a surprisingly pleasant end. Baki recovers just enough to tell his dad that he technically did end up losing to him, so both of them have given each other their flowers and are now in a place that you wouldn't have thought would be possible for them to achieve at the beginning of Baki in 2018. But the big question now becomes, what next? It would seem that with the conclusion of his grudge match with his own dad, Baki has nothing more left to achieve. He's fought and defeated multiple world champions, criminals, a prehistoric dinosaur-eating man, and his own father, dubbed as the world's strongest creature. What could possibly be left for Baki to accomplish in his life anymore? Well, turns out, quite a bit. Baki Hanma Season 2 post-credits scene and what's next? The future of Baki and the path he will take. If you're like us and you can't wait for official renewal announcements, then we did have a hint at Baki's return status towards the end of the final episode of Season 2 Part 2, but you'd have only caught it if you were patient enough to sit through the credits. Throughout the multiple shows regarding the young grappler's life, series creator Keisuke Itagaki has managed to brilliantly spotlight some of the side characters as being just as investment-worthy as Baki, if not more. In the most dangerous convicts arc, that was Dorian and Biscuit Oliva. In the Pickle arc, it was Katsumi Orochi. In the Rai Tai tournament arc, it was Ali Jr. And in Season 2 Part 2 of Baki Hanma, the featured side character was one we all love, Retsu Kaio. After losing part of his shoulder and a full leg to Pickle, Retsu Kaio ended up transitioning to boxing, and we see him become an unparalleled exhibition match attraction as the season unfolds. Retsu Kaio manages to defeat the Baki equivalent of Joe Frazier, one of the hardest hitting boxers in boxing history, and it seems like he is getting comfortable out there in America for the time being. The post-credit scene of Baki Hanma Season 2 Part 2 shows Retsu Kaio at a press conference with a World Heavyweight Championship belt beside him, which was given to him by the promoter Kaiser, despite the fact that Kaio had never actually had an official fight. It showed Retsu looking down on boxing in comparison to his own style of fighting, which was typical of him in this season, but this is your first hint that Baki is far from over, because as Retsu Kaio is one of the main players in the next arc of the franchise. You see, Baki Hanma covered the third series in the Baki franchise. The 2018 Baki series focused on the second manga series of the same name, and the 2001 group tack show Baki the Grappler was named after, you guessed it, the original manga series, which was serialized from 1991 to 1999. The second series was serialized from 99 to 2005, and the third one was serialized from 2005 to 2012. Itagaki has pretty much never stopped making Baki content, and quite recently, the sixth series in the franchise, titled Baki Rahen, began serialization. So, as you guys might have noticed, there's a 6-year gap between the published date of the manga we just saw get animated and when the first season of the Netflix show dropped. What happened in those 6 years? Well, 2 of them didn't see any official continuation of the manga, but in 2014, Itagaki returned to the series with a new title, Baki Do. This roughly translates into Baki's Path from Japanese, and the 4th title had one of the series' most iconic and chilling antagonists till date, the real-life Japanese legend Miyamoto Musashi. Through a combination of science and literal voodoo, Musashi is brought back to life by the only man whom you can say takes more of an interest in a good fight than Yujiro himself, Old Man Tokugawa. But it quickly becomes apparent to Tokugawa that he made a giant mistake by reviving Musashi, a man who lived during what was quite possibly the hardest period from a fighting standpoint in Japan's history, into a world that was all about peace and where fighting didn't have the same meaning as it did in Musashi's time. The reason why Baki Hanma ends with a Retsu Kaio post-credits scene is that our beloved one-legged Sea King is about to throw it down with the greatest samurai in history, and trust us when we say you guys aren't prepared for the results. We'll talk more about Musashi himself in a separate video because he is quite possibly the craziest Baki character from an anatomical standpoint, but he also ends up becoming Baki's next challenge. Bakido finished serialization in 2018, and in that same year, Itagaki began another series with the same title, only this time written in katakana and featuring sumo wrestlers descended from the legendary founder of that culture. Baki Rahen had just started publishing in the year 2023, and its title roughly translates to Baki and Others, which is fitting because so far the series has been all about the Picklejack rematch, which we personally cannot wait to see. But you guys get what this means. It means that Baki on Netflix isn't over just yet. Though an official announcement is yet to be made, there's an open end here which can be easily picked up and animated within the next couple of years, and given the insane popularity of Baki's interpretation of Musashi within its world, Netflix would be foolish to stop animating the franchise at just Baki Hanma. But hey, stranger things have happened in this world, and no, that pun is very much not intended. Marvelous verdict! But as for this video, that's all we've got for you guys. Baki vs Yujiro was a great fight, and it was amazing to see our boy finally stand up to his dad and give him a beating on an equal footing. But while it feels like a natural conclusion of the story, it's really just the beginning. What happens when you become the strongest? You get bored until the next real challenge arrives, and that's exactly what the series has been all about since Baki Do onwards. We personally can't wait for the renewal of the series because we love how Itagaki draws Musashi as this unblinking psychotic murderer. But if for some reason Netflix doesn't pick it up for adaptation, then consider this our early petition for MAPPA to animate the series, because we don't want Baki to end anytime soon. That's all for now, but thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.